Right, hopefully you've had a go at calculating your ecological footprint. The WWF one is a bit more comprehensive than the other one and a bit more useful, I think, but it's good to have a look at both of them anyway. And hopefully your ecological footprints weren't too horrendous. I'm hopeful that is the case anyway. On the next slide, you'll see this skills test using choropleth maps to identify patterns. So you've got two maps here. The first one is the Human Development Index, and the second one is CO2 emissions per capita. These are just examples of choropleth maps, so you get an idea of what they are. And basically, a choropleth map is a map that is shaded according to a scale in lighter and darker versions of the same colour. So these are obviously not perfect choropleth maps because there's some grey bits on them, but they are certainly pretty decent examples of them. Okay, so for the next thing, what would be really helpful is if you've got some way of either electronically drawing on a map of the world, or if you are able to print off a map of the world that you can use to do this, that would be spectacular. And if you've got some colouring pens or pencils, that would also be spectacular. Basically, you will only need 3 colours, hopefully in a scale. So countries with an average eco-footprint of above 6 global hectares, countries with a global footprint of between 3 to 5.9, and countries with an eco-footprint below 2.9 global hectares per person. So there's a map there, or you can just Google blank world map PDF and print one off for yourself. And then the data for the global eco-footprint in global hectares is on the next slide. So you need to use this data to shade in your map using the key above. Okay, and once you have done that, have a little look at the patterns that it creates and see which countries are the ones that have got the biggest ecological footprints. I imagine that you would probably be able to have a pretty good guess at that already, to be fair. So once you have finished that little task there, have a look at this. This is the global ecological footprint. So you've had a look at your own personal one with the calculator. You've just had a look at some country-based data. And then finally, this is the global ecological footprint. And you can see here that in about the late 1960s, we went from a position of having excess biocapacity into a position of negative biocapacity, which means that global consumption shifted to an unsustainable level. So we've been living unsustainably since before even I was born, which is pretty mad. So just based on this data, just think about what you think the global footprint's likely to be like in 10 years' time, in 2030. Why do you think this is? And what do you think could change this trend? So I reckon at the moment, if we look back on this year, we'll probably see a massive dip in the ecological footprint because we're all at home, aren't we? And we're not consuming as many things as we normally do, other than people hoarding toilet paper and food. I think that we're not flying as much, we're not travelling about in cars as much, we're not able to go to restaurants or create kind of excess consumption in that way. So probably the one really good positive of the ridiculous pandemic is that our ecological footprint has probably got a lot smaller, which is not to say that I'm condoning the pandemic at all. Okay, next slide. If you want to have a little bit of exam practice, you can do a definition of an ecological footprint. You can explain 2 positive aspects of ecological footprints as a measure of resource consumption. Okay, and then just have a think about why the footprints vary. You've seen all the ways that ecological footprints are measured, and try and think about some other ways that they might vary. So have a go at that if you want to. If you don't, that's up to you. That's your jam. You carry on. And then finally, the last thing I would like you to do, ArchSmart, draw the most important thing you've learnt today and post it on the lesson feed, all right? It could be anything. I'm not even going to give you any tips or hints. It could be as badly drawn or as well drawn as you like. It's entirely up to you. Just a little picture that summarises what you have learnt today, or the most important thing that you've learnt today. I cannot wait to see your pictures. As always, any questions, give us a shout, post a question on the feed or email, and let us know any thoughts, ideas, anything at all. All right, bye.